Today we are going to paint a simple little landscape together in the spirit of rural Spain. Think crooked old towers leaning with time, dark Mediterranean greenery, and a slightly fairy tale mood. I was asked to create a whole series of these naive storybook-like paintings to restore one of the oldest herbal shops in Barcelona. So my goal here is to bring back what was lost while keeping that very style alive. And while you watch me work on this painting, I also want to share something else. What painting really gives us, and why it is one of the best forms of art therapy. Imagine this. You sit down to paint. In front of you are a canvas, some paints, and a brush. Nothing special, just fabric and pigment. But the moment you begin, your brain starts to switch gears. You stop replaying all those endless lists of tasks, arguments, or news in your head, and you focus only on the stroke. One line, one touch of color, and suddenly you are in a different reality. You know why it works? Because painting is like meditation with color. You pour into the canvas whatever you are carrying inside. Sometimes it is anger, sometimes tiredness, sometimes joy. And the beauty is, the canvas accepts it all. It does not care what mood you are in. It never judges. As you start moving the brush, your body settles down. You set your own rhythm, quick and bold if you like, or slow and gentle, almost like breathing. And with that rhythm, your mind gradually evens out too. You might not notice it right away, but half an hour later, you catch yourself thinking, wait, I actually feel lighter. Another thing, painting gives you a sense of control. In real life, not everything depends on you, but on the canvas, it does. You decide whether there will be a dark patch or a light one, whether to keep a mistake or paint over it. It is simple, but it quietly restores your confidence. And maybe the most rewarding part, sometimes you look at a finished piece and realize, oh, so that is the state I was in. It is like a mirror, only more honest. And that is where the therapy lies. You begin to understand yourself better. I am never sure what the right thing is. Should I tell you exactly what I am doing step by step? Or should we talk about the deeper things that shape an artist's vision? Quite often I repeat the same patterns. Cool color over warm, start with an imprimatura, add some earthy tones, and so on. But if you are hearing this for the first time, think about this. Technically, you will learn to handle the brush. It is not as hard as it looks. The real question comes later. What then? How do you paint in a way that reflects you, not just your teacher? One simple way is to notice what you love in other people's paintings. Not in the sense of, I want a copy of Van Gogh, but in the details. Maybe you connect with his sharp, restless lines. Or with Monet, it might be the vibration of light. With Chardin, the quietness. The key is to pull out what speaks to you personally, not what is supposed to impress everyone. Then you can start playing with what comes naturally. Some people's strokes turn out energetic, almost like music. For others, they are calm, barely visible. That is not a mistake. That is your handwriting. Even if you think the painting looks raw or unfinished, it may be more honest than a perfectly polished academic study. It also helps to ask yourself questions, not just paint with your eyes. What do I feel when I look at this subject? What color resonates inside me when I think of it? Maybe you paint a tree not because it is pretty, but because it reminds you of childhood, or the sea not as a blue patch, but as a sense of freedom. These things cannot be borrowed from a teacher. They are only yours. And here courage matters. Many students are afraid to step away from what was shown in class. They said I have to start with a warm underpainting, so I will stick to that. But rules were not made to lock you in. They were made to give you a starting point. Real work begins when you dare to break them and try your own way. Remember, a painting always shows more than the subject. It shows the person who painted it. If you are nervous, the strokes will be sharp. If you are calm, the transitions will be soft. If you are bored, the canvas will feel empty even if you add 100 details. Honesty matters more than mastery. Mastery will come if you paint regularly. Honesty is what the viewer feels right away. And that is the answer to what comes next. Next is searching for your rhythm, your light, your sound. Trying, failing, wiping away, and painting again. Keeping some things you borrowed, breaking others. Step by step, your work stops being a reflection of your teacher and becomes a reflection of you. Now, here are a few more tips that might come in handy. First, think about structure before color. I know it's tempting to go straight into mixing beautiful shades, but if your forms are shaky, no color will save the painting. Try squinting your eyes while you paint. That reduces everything to value, light and dark. If the image still works when squinted, the structure is solid. If it falls apart, you probably need to fix the big shapes before adding more layers. Second, try not to outline objects. In real life, nothing has a black line around it. Instead of drawing a cup or a roof with a sharp contour, use color and contrast to define it. The edge of a tree, for example, might be a soft blur against the sky, or a jagged rhythm of greens against a warm wall. Think, where does one thing end and another begin? Not as a line, but as a shift in light. Third, simplify wherever you can. You don't need to paint every leaf on a tree or every brick on a building. Your brain loves patterns. If you show just enough of a texture or rhythm, it will fill in the rest. So instead of painting 20 windows, try painting 3 clearly and just suggest the rest. The viewer's brain will do the work for you. Fourth, paint the air. I know that sounds vague, but what I mean is, always consider what's between you and the object. Is it haze, humidity, or just distance? The farther things are, the more muted they become. Less contrast, cooler tones, softer edges. This is called atmospheric perspective, and it's a powerful trick to add depth. Even a simple background can suddenly feel like real space if you fade it properly. Fifth, don't rush the colors. Beginners often focus on bright colors, blues, reds, yellows, and skip the grays and browns. But the quiet colors are where the magic happens. Warm gray shadows, dirty greens, dusty pinks. These are what make a painting feel natural. So don't be afraid to mix mud on your palette. Mud is good. Mud is the glue that holds your colors together. And one more, leave parts unfinished. Not everything has to be resolved. A blurred corner, a loose brush stroke, an area that fades into nothing. These create breathing room. A painting that's too finished everywhere feels stiff. But when you give the viewer something to imagine or complete in their head, that's when the painting starts to live. By the way, sometimes you ask me, do I use thinner or oil? I use both, but let me share a little cocktail I swear by. You'll need linseed oil, refined or boiled, plus some Damar varnish and turpentine. Mix it all until it's nice and smooth, and you're ready to paint. Back in the academy, we used to call it the Trinity. There are so many little details that can make or break your experience. The right brushes, good paint, the right mediums to mix or thin it, proper canvas material, and even something as basic as how you hold the brush or where you stand while painting. Some of these things I learned in art school. Some I picked up from other painters, some came with time. But the one thing I know for sure, never stick to just one teacher. Learn from many and eventually you'll find your own voice. If you're curious, I put together a painting course. It's for beginners, but also for anyone who wants to ground their practice in real technique. It costs about as much as filling up your car, but way less depressing. You pay once and get access for as long as you need. Links in the description. As you can see, I am not completely painting over the underpainting. I'm using medium to apply a thin layer of color and just slightly adjust what's already there. Some artists build up 5, 10, even 15 layers of paint. It really depends on how obsessed you are with the process. Okay, a quick note. As you can see, I added diagonal shadows from the tower to make it easier for the viewer to understand where the light is coming from. That kind of clarity is important for our brain when we look at an image. So don't hesitate to add similar shadows in your own paintings, from trees, stones, or even fruit if you're working on a still life. Also, notice how my crooked, half-ruined towers are lighter than the surface around them. That's another trick to highlight your main objects. Just make them more contrasting against the background. Let's talk about light, real light, the kind that makes people go, whoa, that's glowing, even though it's just paint. Here's the thing. Light in painting is never just about adding white. That's the first instinct most people have. Oh, I want this spot to shine. Let's dump some titanium white on it. And then it turns into toothpaste, flat, chalky, dead. The secret is not to paint the light, but to paint what surrounds it. The glow only happens when there's contrast. So before you make that bright spot, ask yourself, is the area around it dark or muted enough to let it shine? A candle in a dark room glows. A candle at noon doesn't even get noticed. Try this. Before you highlight something, first darken or neutralize what's around it. This doesn't mean make everything muddy. Just lower the saturation, or shift the temperature a bit cooler or warmer, whatever helps the light pop. Another trick, edges. Soft edges make light feel like it's spreading. Hard edges make things feel solid, contained. So if you're painting sunlight on a wall, keep the center bright, but let the edges dissolve softly into the surface. Suddenly, it feels like the wall is catching light, not just wearing a sticker. Also, avoid pure white in most of the painting. Save it. Treat it like dessert. You don't start with it and you don't throw it everywhere. That way, when you finally touch the brush to the canvas with just a hint of pure white, boom, it feels electric. Now let's add some depth to the mix. One of the easiest ways to create depth is to control contrast. Things in the front have sharper contrast, stronger colors, clear edges. The farther back you go, the more you reduce all three. Blur the edges, mute the colors, lower the contrast. And you'll see how space starts to appear on the canvas, even without perfect perspective. Another one, color temperature. Warm colors, reds, yellows, oranges, feel closer. Cool colors, blues, blue-grays, recede. So if you're painting mountains, try layering them with cooler tones as they go back. Or if you're doing a still life, make the shadows in the back cooler and the front ones warmer. Suddenly, the whole thing breathes. And finally, overlap and variation. Don't line everything up like it's on a stage. Let one object slightly cover another, change the rhythm, tilt something just a little. Our eyes love irregularity. It makes the world feel real. So, to make your light glow and your painting feel deep, darken what's around the light. Use soft edges to let it spread. Save pure white for special spots. Push your contrast to the front, soften the background. Cool colors go back, warm ones come forward. Overlap and vary the composition. And don't forget to squint now and then. Seriously, when you squint, you stop seeing the details and start seeing the real relationships of light and shadow. That's your best test.